Hello, Bulls fans. This is Matt, Tim, and Conrad from UB Bull Run. We're here with our weekly football podcast, Webcast, the final one of the year, formerly known as Last Bowl In. We are doing away with that name and have not decided on a new one yet. We will figure that out. We've put a post up for you to add in your suggestions. Feel free to keep sending them in. We're here. It's the end of the year. UB finishes at 5-6. I'll start by going around the horn like Dave often does. Tim's here. He'll say hello here.
Hello.
And Conrad's muted. Nope, he's unmuted. Conrad's here.
Hello.
And so like I said, we finished the season 5-6. Do not get to finish with a 500 record, which is a pretty rare thing. Since UB joined the FBS, do not get to finish with a 500 record in the MAC, thanks to a canceled game because of Kent State. We did finish the season with 2 straight wins, which is nice. A big win over Akron and then a win over UMass. With that said, we'll jump right in and talk about the whole season. You know what? The season's over. We got to talk about the whole thing all at once now, which is something we haven't done. And I don't know if Tim or Conrad wants to start, but I think Tim has some thoughts already down on paper they can go with. You guys can fight it out if Conrad wants to start, I suppose.
So, it's the season that, unfortunately, I kind of expected but was afraid to predict early in the year. I think when we had our preseason show, I said, we go 7-5 and sneak into a bowl. But then after the show, I said, this can go sideways, 4 or 5 wins. And that's what it is. I think what none of us saw coming was Jeff Quinn being fired after, was it 7 games? And that kind of 3 and 4, 7 games, and that kind of turned the whole season on its head, made this entire season a pre-transition year. And Danny White made his hire this past weekend, and now we know we're going forward with Lance Leipold from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. The season's honestly just a blur. It's been a blur of what coach are we going to hire, and can we crawl a 6-6, and of course, where the hell is Kent's equipment van?
Yeah, there were some trucks at UB today as I was pulling off the campus, and have to wonder if maybe there's a bunch of football pads in there. They did make a nice show that they got to Akron, though, so hooray for that, Kent Akron. I'll let Conrad go with his thoughts next, but I do agree, a sneak peek with the idea that the whole season was a blur. It was not how I feel a normal football season goes with the build-up. That firing midway through really changed the feeling. Of course it does. Conrad?
I think it was a successful season. I think we were looking for ways to get rid of our coach for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think in 2012 we said, 2013, don't let a 3-game winning streak give this coach more life. So that 2013 is going to be good because we know it's going to be good. And then 2014 is going to be bad because he's not going to have those weapons again. And it's almost exactly what happened, exactly as we said it would happen in 2012. And I think even when people were celebrating after we won the Ohio game in 2013, a lot of people were saying, well, we haven't beat anyone yet. It's not a cause for celebration yet. We haven't seen anything from this coach yet. And so for all intents, I think if you said that we could go 12-0 or we can go 6-6 and get rid of our coach, I think a lot of us would have picked 6-6 and get rid of the coach. The best possible season we could have with that outcome. So I guess 7-5 we could have gone. We beat Ohio. That would probably have been the best, but the second best. And then I think you gotta love the offense that we have. We have a lot of good guys coming back. Licata was good, not great but good. Taylor was surprising, especially after how we started the season, and really played really well. You gotta love Jordan Johnson when he gets a chance to run the ball. You like our receivers. Willoughby was Newt Jr. this year, and the defense was as bad as I said it's been since 2012, since Lou Tepper stepped into the building, and hopefully the lights off in his office and he's not coming back.
Yeah, well, UB at least needs to use the office, I should say. There's not that many rooms on campus. It is interesting to the extent that we can say there was a fire Quinn camp or a pro Quinn, things like that. With Reggie Witherspoon, we had a much more delineated camps there. But the folks like Conrad, who said what Conrad just said back in 2012 and around the extension, it played out exactly as they said it was going to happen. It was we've had a nice little run streak with a true freshman quarterback at the end here. Next year is going to be good because the team is loaded, and after that, that's when the roosters are gonna come home. Chickens are going to come home to roost. For myself, I don't know.
What really kills me is as bad as it was, we're a Patrick Clark field goal away from probably winning the MAC East.
Yeah, and a intelligent bus driver.
We're starting Licata in 2012 away from 3 straight Mackies. Kent State won in 2012. They let us hang around that game forever, while Zorge was like 2 for 23 in that game. Everything. I mean, that's Quinn era in a nutshell. Is that this is the 3 biggest layup years in the MAC, and we kind of gave it away each year.
Yeah, I don't have anything new to say beyond that. I mean, I agree, and I feel similarly with the idea that this year kind of, obviously it's very rare to see a coach fired mid-season, but it really did funny things with the year. On top of that, October, we already had only 3 games played. After the coach firing, there were 11 days without any football, 12 days, and then we had a game canceled in the middle of action, and that meant another 2-week plus break. It really just, thank goodness we had home games at the beginning of the year, because while the attendance didn't hit the inflated marks that they'll tell us they hit last year when they led the MAC, it still wasn't a bad year for attendance by UB standards and MAC standards, and understanding that we inflate the numbers. The one game that really gets me is Central Michigan. I think Central Michigan was a decent team. I think we had them on the ropes even with all that turmoil, and I'm just not sure what happened. I was there. I was in person for both Eastern Michigan and Central Michigan before and after that nonsense, and neither game was the UB team. Even the UB team that we saw against Baylor could have won both those games. It was just even before and after it was bad. Something I do want to touch on, I know that we've talked about it before, and Tim has said his thoughts before on it, both this year and in the past, but Tim, I know that you have a particular view of the extension back in 2012, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, so I apologize for that, but I think this is a good chance to reiterate it. You have a view on the extension that is more well thought out and kind of addresses what somebody might have been thinking long term at the time of that extension, and you understand that the extension, or your belief is that the extension was a making the most out of an awkward situation. So I think this season-ending show where Jeff Quinn has been fired would be a good time to reiterate that, and then we'll move on, if you don't mind.
I think that's a slight misrepresentation, incidental misrepresentation of what I believe. I believe it was the wrong move, but I mean, it's always easy to say that with hindsight. I think the way it was structured, and I know, Connor, you can shake your head all you want. I'll finish my thought. The way it was structured was such that the financial impact university is not as nearly as bad as people made it out to be. Basically, I think that extension got Jeff Quinn 7 more games at Buffalo. Now that could blow a season. I mean, he wasn't going to be gone in 2013 regardless. He won the last 3 games. Even if he doesn't get the extension, he's around last year. And after going to a bowl, he's probably extended at the end of last year. If you extend him after going to the bowl game, or if you're tempted to, he's in a much stronger position for that extension than the one that he signed in 2012, which basically said, yeah, we got to pay you for 2013 if we fire you. We got to pay you for 2014 if we fire you, but after that, it trails off. If Quinn gets a job, vending at a football game, we won't be paying him anything by 2015. So I think it was a calculated risk. I think it was a safe play. It wasn't the right decision, but again, I don't like to apply my hindsight to stuff because my hindsight's nearly perfect.
I shake my head because it's not hindsight. It was wrong in foresight. It was wrong in hindsight. It was wrong from space. Anywhere you want to look at it, it was the wrong choice. And it was. I think I read Danny White said that there was a lot of pressure when he got here. A lot of pressure, and it was hurting the students. The student athletes were feeling the pressure of not knowing what would happen with the coach the next year. That's not a good reason to keep someone when there's all the pressure in the world to get rid of the person. Sometimes you should just get rid of the person. I think that's one of those. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer I think it wasn't like if I take the pressure off of Quinn, everything will be better. It was you have to fire Quinn. And biggest mistake Danny White's ever made, maybe he'll ever make in his career. If he writes an autobiography in 30 years, I expect a chapter where he tried to make the safe move and it backfired in his face. But and then the thing I was writing, but I'm not going to publish probably. But 2012, who are the two coaches that were hired in 2012 that would have been pretty good here? One, the dancing gesture, PJ Fleck. He went to Western Michigan in 2012, or after the 2012 season. So 2013 he could have had the season with Khalil Mack and Brandon Oliver, and then reloaded the way he's loaded Western Michigan in 1 year, and we could have been going really fast with a junior quarterback. That would have been amazing if he could have done what he's done at Western Michigan here. He's the MAC Coach of the Year. And then the other one was Brian Polian, guy who's coached at UB, who has ties to the city. After a 4-8 year in Nevada, his first year, he's gone 7-5, and they're going to a bowl game this year. So you got some guys who we could have made a run at in the end of 2012 season, and instead we stuck with Jeff Quinn. No way of looking at that and saying it was anybody could have made that mistake. That was cowardice by Danny White, and he's taken a leap in this coaching hire. It's not the safe pick. So maybe he's learned his lesson about playing it safe.
So, all right, so here we go. Back to me. My point is, Conrad, he's not getting fired after 2012. He's won those last 3 games. He's won those last 3 games, and he's only got a year left on his contract. So even if you don't extend him, you're going to give him that year. And I don't think there's too many athletic directors who would have not given him that year at Buffalo's level. Yeah, if you're Nebraska, you're going to fire a 9-10 win coach. That's different. So if he gets, but that was Ward Manuel, not Danny White, who fired Hoffner with a year left. Or it wasn't even, was it Manuel? Okay, so it was Ward Manuel. So anyways, so we're not going to fire Quinn. He's won the last 3 games. He's got a new quarterback in there. He's got like we all said, he's got a loaded team coming in. We know it. We have the potential for a great year. So if you don't extend him, he has 2013. So what? You let him go after 2013. Let's assume that happens. We lose a year. I'm not saying it was the right decision. I'm saying it's not nearly the explosively bad decision that people are making out to be. It was a call that was made. It was a reasonable call. It wasn't the best call. I think we can all agree on that. But I think there has to be some hindsight in there, because I think if Quinn beats Bowling Green last year, we're not having this conversation. So we're having this argument that it was a failure based on 1/2 of football.
No, I don't think so. I think
Bowling Green, we win the MAC East.
If Quinn wins Bowling Green, there's still, that's why I talk about the fractured fan base. Do you think Dave would have been okay with Quinn? Do you think I wouldn't have been okay with Quinn if we won the MAC East last year? Just haven't seen enough from the coach. I don't think he gets any benefit of the doubt. He didn't do enough to get a benefit of the doubt. That Toledo, the loss to Toledo, I mean, I guess if he won the MAC East, I don't know. He should have won the MAC East. I guess that's the question. He should have won the MAC East. There shouldn't have been any. I don't think that would have been enough. I think that was expectation. You have Bowling Green at home with Khalil Mack, Brandon Oliver, and a quarterback that's one of the top in the league. You should win the MAC East. I don't think that would have been some great triumph.
And we were 30 minutes away from doing it. And if those 30 minutes go better and we win the MAC East, do we fire Jeff Quinn after the season or let his contract go away?
If we won the MAC East and he fired Jeff Quinn, I don't think that many people would be complaining.
I think you're so wrong. You planted your stake on that one.
I mean, we've hated Quinn for 3 years, and then we have a team that's loaded, and there's still a question of whether Quinn had anything to do with it.
But this year Quinn is 3-4 and fired, and you still have a significant amount of the fan base saying, "How do you fire a coach who just took you to a bowl last year?" You're always
I have not heard one fan say that. I've heard announcers say that.
Then you're not looking. There are plenty of maybe not fans on our world.
Those are the people hearing the announcers on ESPN say it and they're regurgitating it back, not people who know what they're talking about. People say, I can't believe this last year, after the Baylor game, I was complaining about Jeff Quinn, and the Baylor people were saying, this guy's an idiot. Why would they get rid of this coach? There's nothing wrong with the coach. There's nothing wrong with the defense. It's just Baylor. We just beat them. There's always people who don't watch it every day who say it's doing great. The people who watch it every day were annoyed about all the things that we weren't doing, all the things we weren't executing. The games where UMass was beating us in the third quarter. And they're fresh. They're coming straight out of FCS and not beating anyone. That there was no. It was a very the 3-man rushes. It was just a very exasperating era of football. And no, if we were 12-0, I wouldn't sign up for another 3 years of it.
I have just one last thing to say on the subject, and that is, if extending Jeff Quinn and getting 7 more games out of him is truly the worst decision Danny White ever makes, he will be one of the greatest athletic directors in history, because that as far as like calamitous decisions AD's made, that's way down there.
Well, I mean, that depends on who he's hired to replace. Everything that Leipold does, like I said, it's going to be compared to what Fleck's doing and what Polian's doing. These are the guys who you have a shot at 2012. And then there's a certain segment of the fan base who says, I mean, I'm skipping ahead, but D3 coach is at the best that you could come up with. So, I mean, there's still a lot of pressure on Danny White. He's not out of the woodshed, or he's not.
I don't think he is. No. I think for the first time, he truly has no excuse, and he owns his coach.
Well, that was good talking. I do before we move on from the year-end wrap-up, I do want to highlight a post that we wrote on June 4th, so a full 6 months ago now, and I'm going to drop it in the comments momentarily here of this post so that you can see it when you're watching. But we asked each of the 4 of us, Tim, Conrad, and Dave, and I, predicted the season game by game, and we had a range. Everybody picked a different number from 6 wins to 9 wins. And we just need to highlight the fact that Dave, who isn't here because he falls asleep easily, this is the second time it's happened this season. We can't forget that. Did pick every single game correctly except for Kent missing the game to a snowfall, which you can't really predict that in June. So I'll drop it in the comments. We do need to give a shout out to Dave, who the season went exactly like you said it would as far as you go by wins and losses. So that is something. As I said on Twitter, we at Bull Run know what we're doing, and we're pretty good at it when it comes to Buffalo sports. Buffalo Bulls.
We do need to mention he also still finished near the bottom of the pack in Brew Peg. I'm going to keep saying that.
He did. Oh, he can get the wins.
Knowing how every game was going to end.
Yeah, he could have had more points if he had just picked the same games, just on win-losses. If he had used his June picks, he would have had more points than he finished with. So we should point that out. After the season roundup, we talked about last week we each highlighted a senior that we wanted to speak about. And I don't know if we're more prepared to talk today or anything, but it is the season wrap-up. The seniors have played their last game for UB. Their last game at UB Stadium happened on a Tuesday night against Akron and not on a Wednesday night against Kent State, but we've beat that to death. Do you guys have anything more to say about the seniors? I know that something we'll be talking about is guys going to NFL camps. We know the offensive line is losing 3 of their 5. And, of course, we've got, at least in Devin Hughes, and maybe you guys have more that you want to highlight, guys who really stepped up towards the end of their career here. So whatever you guys want to say.
No, I just, just hope they finish their degrees this year and go out in the world, have big success. For those who don't go into athletics, they are the Quinn survivors. They survived 4 years of being coached by nobody but Jeff Quinn when Alex Wood towards the end. I just am really impressed with how well this team is compared to where it was 10 years ago. And a lot of that is the players that we've brought in.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Conrad, do you have anything to say on the seniors, or should I keep going? No, Conrad's shaking his head. Well, one thing I do want to hit on there is unit-wise. This coming into this year, we were really excited about the O-line. They started 3 seniors and 2 juniors, and obviously with that, we're losing 3 of them. I think the units that we can be excited about this coming year that aren't really affected by graduation are, of course, the skill positions on offense. We're returning all of our running backs We're returning both Licata and Daniel in the backfield. I would hope that Licata can do more, but I also liked what I saw out of Daniel. So that change of pace situation they used him as, if it can be done effectively and without hurting things, it might be nice to see. And we're returning all of our wide receivers except for Devin Hughes, who did have a big season this year. We've had a diehard Devin Hughes supporter in our comments section for a couple years, and he was proved right this year over and over again, and that was good to see. It's good to see someone step up in the Newts and Fred Lee hole.
Yeah, we had to eat a lot of crow. There were times where we would express ourselves, wow, this guy is really just a homer. He's just not seeing the receivers for what it is, and the minute that Devon Hughes is needed, he's a huge guy for us this year. So best crow I've eaten in a long time.
Yeah, I can't say that because I criticized the Sean Burke hire at the beginning of this women's soccer season, and so that's the best crow that I've eaten. But it happened at the same time. I do think Devin Hughes had a big year. His catch against UMass, I'm not sure if the game is already out of reach, but he had a diving, lunging forward catch in the end zone pretty early in that UMass game that was kind of just a nice spark. It was fitting for him in his senior year. Adam Redden's another one who we should highlight. We highlighted him last week, but he had a great junior year playing in that defense where people had to commit 2 and 3 guys to Khalil Mack. And, of course, the numbers dipped a bit, but he had a great year this year as well. He was named second team All-Mac. I think he deserved first, but a lot of people deserve first, and none of them got it, so that happened.
Well, and let's not forget, he was named second team All-Mac as a linebacker last year and second team All-Mac as a defensive back this year. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes Tepper made was moving Redden around.
Yeah, he seemed to have a less clearly defined role this year, whereas last year it was a strange role, and it was one that I question the sanity of building a defense that has that role in it, but it worked in part because you had Colby Way and Khalil Mack. And this year he was in a different role, and I think he was the best player on the defense this year, and it would have been nice to keep him in a style that worked for the year before. But yeah, he was second team All-Mac. That's exciting. I think he deserved more from the rest of the people who vote, but that's what you get. On the other side, we've talked about the season. We talked about the guys leaving. The guys coming in, we might not have a lot to say, but something that you saw at the Jeff Quinn firing was that a lot of the commits on Twitter, the recruits who have only verbaled and are not guaranteed to come to UB yet, they could have their offers pulled. They were really concerned when Jeff Quinn was fired. Obviously, it kind of throws your world upside down when that stability is gone. And now we bring in a coach who there are reasons to like it and there are reasons to not like it. And Tim, you just muted yourself, but I know that you reached out to a number of them on Twitter and you made that post. And I have something to say about the recruits too. Maybe Conrad does as well. But we'll start with you. You reached out to a number of them on Twitter just to get a read on the situation, how they felt. And so maybe you could talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I reached out to about half of them. And I reached out kind of with the conditions that I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to do direct quotes because this is their future, right? This is where college you're going to go to. I don't want to get them off to a bad start with the department or with the new coach if they decide to stay. None of the recruits I talked to, which was about half of the verbals, said that they had any plans to renege. None of them were firm committing either. No one knew who he was. So they're all getting to know him. They're all looking into his background. I'm assuming they're going to get a call from my coach anytime now. So let's keep in mind, most of the guys who Jeff Quinn actually got to verbal weren't swimming in offers from other schools. Interest from other schools, but no offers. So the question is, Coach Leipold, who committed to honoring those verbal recruitments during his speech at Alumni Arena, he just needs to go and connect with these guys, and he needs to figure out what he's going to do, and it's going to be who he brings in. But if they have a verbal, he's going to keep them. So we'll see who we can keep.
And do you guys think that's a smart move by him? I'm not sure to the answer to this, but do you think that's a smart move by him, given that he's got 2 more weeks and a couple days possibly at Whitewater? You think why not just, even if these guys maybe aren't what he's looking for, just get a class down in this transition year? Do you think that's a calculated risk on his part, or do you think it's more just decency of not throwing these guys into the wild again?
I'm hoping it's a sign that he's a player's coach, and we badly need a player's coach right now. I know Quinn had got some of the players amped. I know there was a contingent of UB players who really loved Quinn, but we saw things. We saw what happened to Rudy Johnson. We saw things that happened in the wake of the Quinn firing that came out, which made it seem like he wasn't a coach who was mostly about the player's success in all areas of life. I'm not. I'm just saying what the players were saying. And believe me, if Dave or Conrad if Dave were here, we'd hear it even stronger. Maybe Conrad will want to feed into this. I'm hoping this is a guy who, at the end of the day, is kind of like has a Turner Gill vision of the team of, these are kids I'm responsible for. It's not just pieces on a field for me to get a paycheck. And that's what I'm really hoping that means.
What was the original question?
We're just talking recruits.
Yeah, but you said, is it a good move that he did what?
That he's honoring the verbals, because it seems to me that, like any coach in transition, that recruiting class is always a little funky, especially with the coach having been fired in October. There's a long period of uncertainty here. Do you think that Leipold saying, "Hey, we're just going to honor all verbals," is a bit of a way just to get a class down, given both that in addition to the normal, and I do know that he has a number to still fill, Tim's just helped me out with, but in addition to the normal already issues of recruiting out of a transition, he's still at Wisconsin Whitewater for hopefully 2.5 more weeks as he continues to win. And so I'm wondering, Conrad, if you think my proposition is that could be a kind of a cover your ass type move to make sure he gets a class down.
I think that is the only thing you can do. I think it's way, way, way too late in the game for him to throw everything out and think he's going to come in 3 weeks and start from scratch over Christmas break, get 25 quality guys in there. So I think usually when you're transitioning, you're mostly worried about holding on to whoever you can. UB's 2010 class was good when Gill left. 2011 class wasn't so good. So I'd hope that Quinn, whatever foundation he had in the recruiting trails, is what this team needs. It's going to be really, really hard to jump in and immediately, without ever practicing with the team we have on the field, figuring out exactly what we need. So I think he's better off just keeping what we have and doing what he can. That said, the team is horribly unbalanced. As I was talking with you earlier this week, we have almost more. We have a lot of running backs, like 7 or 8 running backs on the roster. We have a lot of upper class cornerback or defensive backs on the roster, none of who have a lot of playing experience, and almost no upperclassmen depth in the front, in the D line, and the linebackers. This team is really, really skewed to the offensive side. The defense is in shambles. There's no reinforcements coming. So hopefully, my hope is Quinn was aware of that and he was remedying that. And so I would think all the verbals, hopefully on the defensive side, should be kept and are going to be there to shore up the team. So, yeah.
Yeah, before we move on, I kind of could have done a better job running this agenda, but I do want to highlight that of our verbals that we have coming in here, a number of them made the playoffs. You'd expect that. They're good players on good teams. I do want to highlight 2 that I'm particularly excited about. One is Tyree Jackson, a dual threat quarterback out of Muskegon, Michigan. He plays for Muskegon Mona Shores, and they hadn't won a playoff game in the 52 years of their existence, and they made it to the Michigan Division II state final, where they lost to De La Salle, who I'm not sure where they are from. And I'm not sure if they just lost big because De La Salle is much better. I know that Jackson sprained his knee in the state semifinal game. Not sure how much he played. But even so, the team was 1-10 when he was a freshman. This year they set a school record with 12 wins, won their first playoff game ever in 52 years. And he's coming to UB next year. So that's pretty exciting. And the other one I want to highlight is on the defensive side of the ball. His team's actually still playing. His name is Brandon Standback. Pennsylvania is nuts, and they only this Saturday will be playing the state semifinal game. His team, Bishop McDevitt. They are in Class 3A, which is, I believe, the 3rd largest the system in Pennsylvania. I think they have 1A to 5A. And they are 14-0. They're ranked somewhere in the top 2 or 3 of Pennsylvania. He was recently named to the All-State Defense by PennLive.com. He was someone who did have multiple offers when we got him. And that was something exciting. And he's playing for a good team, and he looks individually to be getting the awards too. So those are two I wanted to highlight. If people haven't been following recruiting, we do have some guys coming in, and Tim's reminding me that we got Jackson over Western Michigan, which is his kind of hometown Division I team. That's the one closest to him. And if Fleck was going after him, I hate to say it, if Fleck was going after him, it's nice to have him here because what PJ Fleck is doing is good. Might have ordered this kind of funny. We've talked from a number of different topics coming into the new coach, and we'll get to it now. We could have started with that, but we didn't. UB did hire their new coach this week, announced it. He's Lance Leipold from University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, a D3 school that's won 5 of the last 7 national championships, appeared in the finals of 6 of the last 7, and they are 2 games away from reaching the championship game again this year, ranked number 1 in the Division III West region. We did break the story. We were the first to report that Leipold was coming to UB, thanks to some excellent work from Conrad. We have learned that we need to be more forceful with our language when we do break stories, so that we can't get kind of pulled out of the recognition that we deserve. But we did have a real good week on the blog, both breaking the story and covering it. And now, what we should have been talking about earlier in the show, but we're here now, is Lance Leipold, new coach. I don't know where you guys want to go with this. I think that a good place to start would be, what are your impressions, either from his career up till now or from his introductory press conference, but you guys can take it wherever you want. Maybe. I'm not sure.
I'll say this. First thing I'll say, I'm not happy that he's going back to Whitewater to coach the playoffs. I'm okay with the pick. My whole thing on Division I football at our level, Division I athletics on our level, is everyone does the exact same thing. There's a formula to follow, and if you're Buffalo and you're following the formula Syracuse is doing and Toledo's doing and Alabama and USC are doing, you're not going to win. You're gonna finish in last. So people who are saying, hey, get that SEC coordinator, get that up and coming guy that is in the running for every job that's out there, that's going to be the wrong move. We can't be successful doing the same thing. So get that Division III guy before he becomes that hot coordinator in the SEC. It's a great move. I think there's nothing wrong with that. That said, it's very risky, and I think I just read it in a Buffalo News comment, and it was about recruiting, and Jeff Quinn's failing was recruiting, and one of the comments said, the greatest recruiting job of all is for the hearts of Buffalo fans, and I think that's pretty spot on. And Division III football coach not necessarily going to do that. People don't want to give Buffalo credit, and I think when Turner Gill was hired, it was Turner Gill from Nebraska championships, Heisman's. When it was Jeff Quinn from this high-powered Cincinnati machine. I remember being told we were going to run the spread and score 50 points a game. Never happened until I guess this year. And but there's a lot of excitement. For this guy, obviously no one's heard of him and no one's seen him. So the excitement is not really there. So if you're talking about selling the program and getting them out to watch Albany play next August, that's not going to be the right move. But for the program in general, I think it's a good move. Only thing I'm upset about is, you're in the big leagues now. There's recruiting to be done. There's players to meet. Get your butt out of Wisconsin and get to Amherst.
Conrad, I'm sorry, I missed it when you first said you don't like that he's going back to Wisconsin.
I do not like it.
You do not like it. Okay.
I don't see it helping us. I think he's bringing the whole staff with him. So these guys, you can't do two. This Division I football, you're fooling yourself to think you can do 2 jobs at once. So, and you're bringing in Rob Ianello to help you with your job. I don't know. It all sounds bad. If Rob Ianello came to me and talked about, and I looked him up on Wikipedia and saw what he did at Akron, and I still don't really know who the head coach is, I'm not very impressed that you're bringing this guy in. If you're going to bring a guy in, bring Marv Levy or someone who's going to impress me. Don't send that loser to my house. But yeah, I think, I'm not sure if he's taking it as seriously as it's going to be. Is he underestimating what's going on? I mean, the best coaches in the MAC are out there still practicing because they're still in bowl contention. But there's what's his name? Bowden in Akron is now hitting the streets. He's hitting the Twitter. He's going after recruits. Our guy is game planning against University of Wisconsin, Northwest. I don't even know who they're playing. Nobody knows who they're playing.
Oh,
I don't think that game.
They're playing Wartburg.
Never even heard of that. Don't know where it is. But I don't think that's going to be as good as getting in there, talking to our players, getting playbooks out there, getting recruits out there talking to recruits. So that's the only complaint that's one of the two complaints I have, but I'll let Tim go.
Well, Conrad, as usual, I had a feeling, and then you started talking. You've done a good job of swaying me. My initial reaction was, I think in terms of the idea of winning the hearts of the Buffalo fans over, there's little he can do better than go and win another national championship now that he's on people's radar. But you have pointed out that, to me at least, the bigger macro picture of what else could he be doing with that time, and that stuff would help the program more. You've done a long shot in 30 seconds to sway me there. Tim, we've been keeping you on deck for a while here. What do you think of the hire and him in general?
I think we saw with Bobby Hurley that a big name isn't going to win the hearts and minds of Buffalo. I think when Turner Gill was hired, there was a different dynamic in the media. There were much lower expectations. I think Ward Manuel was a different man. There was no New York Bulls initiative to chafe the people who will hate anything Danny White does. So I don't think anyone Danny White hates necessarily wins the hearts and minds of Buffalo. I think it's who the person is. And what I heard at the press conference was someone who, even though he's from Wisconsin, sounded fundamentally Buffalonian. Sounded humble and serious about his job. He wasn't brash. He wasn't loud. He wasn't ego-driven. He sounded like now again, this is what I hear, right? He may not be this guy, but this to me sounds like a guy who will win that over, like a guy who's not going to come off as someone come up with the word I'm looking for. He's not going to come off like Hurley-like, where he's not going to, yelling at people. He's not going to come off like Danny White. People who already have an axe to grind with Danny White and NYBI aren't going to be able to grind that axe on Coach Leipold. As to him staying in Wisconsin Whitewater until I think the 19th if they win the championship, that's a little long out there for my taste. I try to temper that with the fact that we hired a coach really early. There's still a lot of programs looking for coaches right now. I do believe there's something about honoring his commitment to his players that he has. There's nothing I hate more than a coach who takes his team to a bowl game and then jets on them for a bigger job. That's if Turner Gill had done that to us in 2009, if we go to a bowl game and he goes to Kansas, I would have been far more upset with him than I was for him just leaving because we weren't going anywhere. Because he had made a commitment to those players, and I would hope that a lot of people would feel that way. And Coach Gianello, yeah, I mean, I had an Akron fan tell me, he almost took us the route of UAB. Like, he almost destroyed Akron football. But on the same token, after the Akron debacle, he went to Kansas where he pulled in a top 25 recruiting class for the Jayhawks, which is, in and of itself, a pretty decent accomplishment. I think he's one of those guys who has succeeded to the highest level of his competency, went one level up, and just fell right back down. I think he's a good recruiter. He was a good recruiter at Notre Dame. He was a good recruiter at Kansas. I think he's a terrible head coach. And so if he was coming on as the coaching staff, I'd be concerned as a transition guy. It's a novel idea. I don't know that I've ever seen it done, and it is unique. I have far more concern with the other coaching developments that I'm sure Matt's going to lead us into in a few minutes.
Yeah, you just said everything I would have said about Ianello, and I think between the two of you said everything I have to say about Leipold himself, who I was impressed with. I think he had a very frank nature at his press conference. This is the deal. You could tell from the press conference that he's Danny White's guy. He talked about potential and opportunity. Those are Danny White's buzzwords. We could make a heck of a drinking game out of those, and not for bad reason. I think there is a lot of potential and opportunity at UB if it's done right. It's also just a long way to go. and to try and do it fast is off-putting to some people. But he did reference those things. I think he was very just, here I am. He was very, very Wisconsin in a way. Just, here I am. I'm here. This is what's going to happen. Here's how it went down. We're excited. My family's excited. I do think he's the type of guy who Buffalo folks will like. But the most important thing to getting people on your side is winning. And we'll see. The coaching staff announcement today came after we built the agenda for this, so let's go right into that now. We are at 12:10, so we've got about 20 minutes left to fit this and one other thing, and then Olympic stuff, which will be quick because there's nothing happening. But we did have the new coaching staff was announced today. I believe it was officially announced and not just put up on the website, kind of without anyone noticing. But the new staff is up on the website. Conrad and Tim, we've been talking about this all day on our own email threads. For those of you who haven't seen, Leipold brings his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator, his wide receivers coach, who does not have a title yet, but is the guy who has SEC experience, having coached O-lines at Ole Miss and Tennessee. He keeps from the old UB staff Marty Simon, the running backs coach, Kosh, the defensive line coach, and Piszczynski, the strength and conditioning coach. And otherwise, he brings in 4 of his own. Tim says there's still a couple slots left to fill. I'm not as aware of kind of the goings on there to make that, but that's the rundown. Basically, you guys have been sharing your thoughts on it all day. I for one, am a little concerned at 4 guys coming in from Whitewater. I was not expecting a full 4. I also would really have liked to see Alex Wood stay in some capacity, because I think he did a good job with his team, and I think there's a lot of emotional loyalty to him that could have helped with some continuity. But with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Well, I didn't want anyone from the defense back. One guy, I definitely didn't want Lou Tepper back. I didn't want anyone involved with the secondary back. So if that is the only option of D-line coach, I guess that's the least objectionable. I didn't want anyone who had anything to do with special teams back either, since that's been a problem since 2010. So that's also good. Simon obviously is something I think I wrote that I was fine with coming back. The running back's been great ever since 2010. That first year was bad, but ever since then, you can list the running backs that have been good. It's not just Oliver and Taylor, but almost everyone who's back there has been good. If it's Rashad Jean, Devin Campbell, James Potts for that one play, Jordan Johnson this year. So whoever you throw back there for some reason, through that running back or through the running backs and the offensive line, they've been able to get their yardage. And then like Matt said, I don't like everyone coming up from Wisconsin. I think about Brian Kelly bringing Jeff Quinn and some of his guys with him. The only difference I would say is that they were at Grand Valley State in Michigan, and then they went to Central Michigan in Michigan, so they had relationships in that area. These guys, Wisconsin's really far away from New York. It's not drivable. I think it's a completely different area of the United States, and I was hoping we'd get someone a little bit of a geographic diversity on that. Really, also wanted to see someone who's recruiting or has influence in the South. You saw when we got Wimberly from Liberty on Turner Gill's staff, we were able to get guys like Brandon Oliver, Fred Lee from South Carolina, Cleo Mack, another Florida guy. Turner himself was a Texas guy, so you've seen getting guys like Brandon Thurmalis and Darius Willis and all these Josh Thomas too, another Texas guy. So I think you have to have a presence in those. You just have to have a presence in those states, Texas, Florida, Georgia area, where they're going to throw away talent that would be the best talent on our team, because even though they have a million teams down there, there's just too many players for that. And I don't think and I think the second thing is, I was talking earlier, I mean, the Western New York guys do really get looked over. And I really don't like David Llewellyn getting out of here. And I think some of that is Quinn pulling a scholarship and not respecting how UB takes care of local athletes here. And I think one of the big things in the Gill era was and even Hoffer era was that the local guys were given a good chance to shine, and they did really well. James Starks, Naaman Roosevelt, Dominic Cook. Um, I mean, there's a lot of guys who are just coming out of Sweet Home or St. Francis or Canisius, and they're 0 stars on rivals, but you give them a chance and develop them, they'll be really good players. So I wish there was someone. I'm glad Simon is still there and that he knows the area. I wish there was someone more connected to Western New York, and it's not just picking up Wisconsin and dropping it into Amherst.
Yeah, on that point, Conrad, I think if we've got 4 viewers right now, we'll have another couple dozen watching it in real time. If anyone from within the football program actually watches this, for Pete's sake, go and look around at Western New York. Like Conrad said, people don't really move on there. It was a shame that David Flewellen went on, but there is a lot of talent in Western New York that doesn't go on to D1 football because their coaches don't promote them well. I know anecdotally of a number of players who, from North Tonawanda, where I grew up, who were getting in contact with Division I coaches, but North Tonawanda did not have any highlight film or any way to promote them, and they ended up at Medaille or Damon or St. John Fisher in Rochester. And we've seen Conrad dropped a bunch of names. He's also mentioned now Alex Newts, obviously, was a Connolly Cup final, Connolly Trophy, whatever the Player of the Year award is. You'll see multiple players from Canisius this year go D1 because Rich Roberts has built a system there that gets players in. You'll see the Wheatleys, the sons of the Buffalo Bills coach, go to major colleges. You'll see Brad Zaffram go to a major college. But Jamestown won the largest state championship in the largest class in New York, and they may only have Panabianco go D1. You don't win a New York State championship with only one D1 player. There's talent out there that just gets overlooked year over year, and in the case of Flewellen, for that to actually get out of Western New York is very strange. Even Steve Tasker's son ended up at Cornell, and now he's a star wide receiver in the CFL. There is talent in Western New York. So that familiarity that Conrad spoke to is good, and that was a little rant of mine. But Tim, once again, we've kept you waiting. I apologize.
That's okay. I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
The staff, the coaching staff.
Oh, yeah. I take it from someone who lives really near to Wisconsin. Other than a slight accent and a love for cheese, they are very similar in terms of their personalities to people from Western New York. A bit of a passive-aggressive streak. Mac recruiting, I mean, he recruits, I mean, he knows and has connections in Chicago, which is a big recruiting area where NIU is situated. I'm not concerned with the geography. I'm just concerned with the number of D3 coaches coming right to the FBS. Yes, it worked out for Brian Kelly, but that might be the exception that proves the rule. I was kind of taken aback. I do think letting Alex Wood get away, if he would stay, is a huge mistake. I mean, just biggest mistake of the transition. Bigger mistake than hiring a D3 coach, bigger mistake than bringing on all these assistants. If you can get Alex Wood to be a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator, you need to do it for the continuality, the fact that this is a guy who stood this team up after their coach had been fired and they felt like they got punched in the gut and ended up taking them to 2-2. It would have been 3-2 if Kent's equipment truck survived the Bermuda Triangle. So I hope that there's still a spot for him. I hope maybe they're just negotiating with him. I don't know. I'll be interested to see who the remaining coaches are. I think there's 3 more that they can bring on to be at the NCAA maximum. And we definitely need to get some people in with, like Conrad said, someone tied into the Western New York area pretty strongly. I'm not enamored with Texas. Yeah, they have a ton of talent, but they have 87 college football teams down there recruiting it, and that's just the teams that actually reside in Texas, not the rest of the SEC and the Big 12 and Conference USA and the Sun Belt. We have very little to offer guys from Texas unless we have a personality from there. So yeah, it depends on who you can get, but I'm not thrilled with what I had today, and I'm just hoping I'm proven wrong. That these guys come on here and they really know football that well, but have been content to be a big fish in a small pond at D3.
Cool. Conrad, do you have anything to add on that?
Uh, well, mm, one other thing. Um, I guess the only other thing is, when Brian Kelly left Central Michigan, or he left Cincinnati, one of the jobs, maybe both times, he left Jeff Quinn there to take care of the team, and he went to take care of his new team. That's one of the problems I think with bringing so many guys over and not hiring anyone else is we could have. I guess we still have Simon there to take care of the squad, but I wish uh, we could have someone setting up and doing something in Buffalo. Um, Other than that, yeah, I think yeah, it's been it's been I think it's pretty much gone over. I mean, I think we'll just see. I guess I would say that I do like the idea of him bringing a lot of his guys over. So there won't be a new breaking in period where he's arguing with his offensive coordinator or defense coordinator about what plays to call. They've been working together for years, and if everything works out, they'll be hitting the ground running when they get to Buffalo. So that is a good thing.
Cool. Thanks, Conrad. Well, we're wrapping up on the end here, but something we wanted to do, this was, I believe, Conrad's suggestion, we moved around, was to just kind of say our MVPs from each unit for the year really quickly. I don't think we need to go. We've talked about the team 13, 14 times this year on one of these webcasts, so we know you've read it, you've heard us talk about it, but just for each unit, I'll take special teams since Dave always stuck me with special teams this year. And I think we have a clear kind of negative side of special teams this year that we talked about a lot. Patrick Clark missed a lot of kicks. Very different kicker from what he was his freshman year. It's a kind of a mystery. Kind of unfortunate to see a senior year, a career end that way. But there was that. There was more flubbed punts. Not all of them lost than any team I've ever seen. Whether it was McGill or Martinez or Island, everybody was missing punts. But somebody who I think didn't get his due. It is Tyler Grassman, the punter. In true Buffalo fashion, we need to highlight the punter, whether it's Brian Mormon or Ben Woods. Not Peter Farden, because he could never get that to work right. But Brian Mormon or Ben Woods, and now Tyler Grassman. He had a pretty good year. He got a lot of strong punts. There were stretches of 3 or 4 games, more than once, where he didn't give up any punt return yards. And that's a skill, is to not give up any returns. He didn't. I was kind of surprised to not see him make the All-MAC teams, and then I went and looked at the numbers, and I was less surprised. But it's also a big skill even to kick shorter punts and keep things within your range, the coverage range of what your gunners can do. You remember that big punt return at the end of the game from Deshaun Jackson maybe 4 years ago now, 5 years, where the Eagles won a game at the end on a punt return because the Giants kicker overkicked his coverage. So I think Grassman had a strong year. I think he's the special teams MVP. Whichever one you guys want to take here. I see notes in the agenda, so somebody's got something to say.
Conrad, after you.
Well, I guess if I take the defense, the big one is Boise Ross, I guess. If you talk about, I guess, the low point of our Baylor was bad. Bowling Green was bad, but I think Bowling Green was the last time we were dominated in the passing game. EMU beat us running the ball. Ohio beat us running the ball. Before Bowling Green, I think there was something ridiculous. We were giving up like 15 yards a catch. We just pretty much covered no one, and we couldn't stop them for any yardage at all. So when he was moved over for the Baylor game, he was bad, and he got burned a lot, but you saw him improving every week and had us all thinking if he had been playing that position since January, he might have been a first-team All-MAC candidate. He had an interception, I think, to break our long interception streak, because our long interception drought, I would say. So he did really well, and it's strange what's happening in our secondary. I think Lester was really, really, really good, and then he got worse every year. And Whitney Sheary used to get playing time, and then he got none, and there was Striggles, and there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of bad play. But throughout all that, Boise Ross really shined through, and now there's a question of how he'll be used next year. Will he be a receiver? Will he be a defensive back? But hopefully, if he's a defensive back and he gets a whole year to practice the position, he'll be even better.
Tim, all you.
I'm going to go with Anthon. just completely blew me away. I thought there'd be a big fall off running the ball with Oliver. I remember saying to myself many times through the early season, yeah, he's doing okay, but he's not Bo. He's not making his own holes, and that's true to an extent. But it's his first year as a starting back, and he had 3 200-yard games. Might have had 4 if Kent showed up. He was about 100 yards away from breaking Oliver's single-season record for rushing, and again, something if Kent showed up, that record probably falls. So he had huge shoes to fill. I mean, the guy who he is replacing has had, 200-yard games in the NFL this year as a rookie. So just big to step up. I was a bit disappointed he didn't get first-team All-MAC, considering he's 10th in the nation or so in yards. But, I'm really glad. I'm really looking forward to him coming back next year and hoping the offensive line stands up in front of him like they did this year.
Yeah, I think Anthony's a great choice. I do want to highlight for the briefest of seconds, if anyone's watching and thinks that Tim pronounced his name wrong, we do, when we type Anthony's name out, spell it ANTH and then the numeral 1, because that's how it's spelled in letters. So we're not mispronouncing the name. That's just how we say it, which maybe is arrogant of us to say it's not a mispronunciation, but that's what we do. And also, I do hate to say, and it's his jersey number. I hadn't even thought about that. Well done, Conrad. I thought it was just the spelling of his name that we were doing.
That's where Conrad got it from.
Okay. Well, I'm hip to what's going on in Bull Run, apparently. The other thing is, Kent's team did make it. We blame Kent a lot. We should say the team made it because the team bus drivers were sensible. It's just Kent's equipment guy. I can't be too upset at the team themselves. We'll still blame Kent because they made it to Akron pretty easily. They made it back to northeast Ohio, but it's just the equipment guy who doesn't know what
you win as a team and equipment guy, and you lose as a team and equipment guy.
That is true. Unless you're Kent and the MAC just gives you a no game and no loss, because that's a different story for a different day. But if you didn't think the MAC didn't care about Buffalo before this fall across all sports, it's just a conversation for a different day. Across all sports, this fall really iced it for me, and it should have for you, and that's a different thing. Before we really wrap up, we always check in with the Olympic sports, which is me. I'm Bull Run's Olympic sports coverage guy. December is very, very light. Before the last couple weeks, all but one fall sport had wrapped up, and only 2 winter sports other than basketball were in action. So it's pretty slight. The first thing we want to highlight is that volleyball, after losing in the first game of the MAC tournament against the eventual conference champions, Western Michigan, who had a great run themselves, volleyball did have one final game of the season against Albany. Happy to report that we beat a SUNY team because that's what we need to do in all sports. We beat Albany in 3 straight sets. It was a pretty terrible volleyball match, but we won. With the win, we are 17-15 to finish the season, which means that we have a winning record for 2 years in a row, which is the first time we've done it since joining the MAC, and it is only the second time we've done it in D1. In 95 and 96, we had winning records in the Mid-Continent Conference. But for UB Volleyball, there are reasons to be critical and not as optimistic about this season, and I do not ascribe by them. I look at the team that lost the MAC Defensive Player of the Year in Kelly Swoboda, and was without Talia Bishop or dealt with ineffective Talia Bishop due to injury or illness or both for a full third of the MAC season, maybe a little more, and still was able to match what they did last year, hit the top 8 in the conference for the first time since joining the MAC, have winning records in consecutive seasons the first time since winning the MAC, is only losing 1 contributor to graduation, is set up for another leap forward next year. The other 2 teams to highlight, swimming and diving is really picking up. The women pretty much don't lose freestyle races. They are going to be very good. They have one competition. Well, the men also compete, but they have one competition against Canisius this month. That is the 18th. It's a Thursday, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Today, if you're watching it after the fact, they'll take on Canisius. That's the only competition of the month. They're very good. Their last meet in Cleveland State, which they missed a day of due to the snowstorm, they ended up finishing in 3rd and 4th, respectively, despite missing a whole day of competition. And despite missing 14 events, they did have 16 individual swimmers and 9 relays hit the top 10 all-time times in the UB record books. And that's in November, before the team really in running races and in swimming races, you see the team try and adjust their training to peak towards the end of the season. The other team in action is wrestling. Wrestling is bouncing back quicker than anyone expected from Jim Buechner's end of his career under John Stutzman. Stutzman, if you watch John McWhinney and I speak on our Olympic Roundup videocast on Sunday nights at 10:30, we sing the praises of Stutzman a lot. He, at his previous job, had to raise $100,000 a year just to keep the program alive, and he had more All-Americans in his final 4 years there at Bloomsburg than Buechner did at Buffalo. We had a comment come on here the other day that was a question of, Stutzman and Buechner and a bounce backwards like Quinn did before he moved forward with the football team, and that's not the case here. Anybody would have had a bad year coaching the team last year because of the academic issues, because of all the stuff that has gone on. It was just not a good team anymore. Now it's on the way back. They've already topped their number of wins last season. They had their best performance at the New York State Collegiate Championships since 2009. They finished in fourth. A number of guys made it to the finals. One individual name that we do really need to highlight is senior Max Soria, who will not be able to compete in any postseason tournaments this year because of UB's APR ban. But he is now 13-1 on the year. His only loss came this past weekend at Northeast Duels to the number 10 ranked wrestler in his weight class, 125 pounds. Soria himself has made it into the top 15 nationally in that. He's very, very good. All I really need to say is that he was undefeated before this weekend, and he still only lost to a top 10 wrestler nationwide. Otherwise, you look up and down that lineup, and it's a ton of freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomores, just very exciting. On the other side of the ledger, Joe Areola at the heaviest weight class is a freshman who's also really impressing, doing very well. He's wrestled against a number of nationally ranked wrestlers this year as well. We'll have more to say about them as they compete more. They are in action this Saturday against Kent State, who has a number of nationally ranked wrestlers. The MAC is very, very good, possibly the second best conference in the nation, in Division I, I should say, in wrestling. But they host Kent State this Saturday at 7. It is free. I will be there. John will be there. If you want to come meet the Bull Run guys, we'll be there. And it's their first home meet of the year, so that's exciting. That's everything for the relatively short world of Olympic sports going on right now. Things will pick up after the holidays when track and softball and baseball get started, and tennis as well. Tennis before the two I mentioned earlier. With that, we've kind of hit the end of the road of our season wrap-up show. It's probably the last one, unless we do intermittent basketball ones, which we're still undecided on as far as I know. So Dave's not here to give a shout-out, which is his fault for falling asleep, although he did have a busy week, so I'm sure he is tired. We still love you, Dave. Which one of you guys wants to go with the shout-outs first? I just talked for a while here. So
I'll go. My shout-out is to Syracuse and Army. Even though Army beat us head-to-head, we have more wins than them. We have 5 wins. Army has 4. Even though they have a game left against Navy that they're not going to win. And Syracuse finished with 3. I think it's especially funny. I think when we found out Syracuse would be going to the ACC, I thought that would be a really bad move for Syracuse because they're going to lose to every team in the ACC. And I was wrong because they beat one team, Wake Forest, and then they lost the other 7. Their other 2 wins were double overtime win against Villanova, where they faked a field goal, they destroyed Central Michigan 40-3. So those are the 3 wins: a MAC win, overtime FCS win, and a win over Wake Forest. So Syracuse, and they mentioned Troy Nunes mentioned they went the 3 wins against the ACC schedule, but an ACC team against the ACC schedule is the same as a MAC team versus a MAC schedule. You got to win those games. So I think for this year, Buffalo's New York's team, thanks to the FCS games. And then I just wanted to mention that Syracuse, there's a recruit story that came out today, which is pretty funny, that they have a tight end, wide receiver hybrid, 6'5", out of Missouri, Wes Lindor, who was committed to Syracuse, but is not going anymore because they didn't answer any of his calls or texts in September. So, they weren't busy winning and they weren't busy recruiting, so what are they doing? I think they might be just lobbying New York State for more stadium money. That might be where they're spending their time. Maybe that's the smart play. That's my shout-out. Thanks.
All right, Tim.
You can never go wrong slamming Syracuse. Never, ever, ever. I'm gonna say to Matt and Conrad for just the cyber sleuthing. When the coaching decision came out, I think that was Sunday. For me, I work in retail, so this entire 2 weeks has just been a complete blur for me. So all I know is I got the email, I sent it out, and 20 minutes later, Matt sending out Twitter account saying, "Okay, who is this person's uncle?" And Conrad managed to run it down and beating SI and the Buffalo News and ESPN to the punch. What was kind of nice to see. And I did get a compliment from someone within UB Athletics for you guys for running that down. They could not tell me anything when I was asking last week, but they were very happy that we broke it and how we broke it because there was no there was nothing there that was objectionable in how we got it. There was nothing there that was anything but professional and first. And they like it when a site that really treats them well and fair gets there first. So good job, guys.
Well, thank you, Tim. Conrad and I did publish a piece that describes how we broke the coaching hire. My only regret is that we weren't as forceful with the news when we had it, because we were first by more than half an hour. And if we had been more forceful, we could have gotten even more of a traffic bump than we did. But I do appreciate that we were applauded for the way we did it, because one thing we did was we showed our hand the whole way. Anyone could have connected the same dots that we did. We said it's publicly available. This is what we found, and this is what we're looking for. My intention then was to crowdsource it, and maybe somebody knew something. It turned out that we did the work ourselves, but it was kind of interesting because 24 hours earlier, Conrad had said, "I would love to break this and be the ones to get first," and for some reason, I believe that it could actually happen, and then it did. My shout out is kind of related to that. This is more just I just spend too much time poring over the numbers of the site and just obsessively looking at how much we got and stuff. And we both had our largest ever week by a factor of 5 or 6 on Facebook this week. And we also passed 1,500 Twitter followers, which is very exciting because when I joined the site, when I started working with the Twitter a year ago, we were at 770. So we've doubled our Twitter in a year. We have added 100 in the last month and a half, which is probably because of the coaching fire, the game cancellation, and it's 3 really big news stories that we were able to capitalize on. But we're now up over 1,500 Twitter followers, which is really great. We've doubled that in a year. Tim can tell you the site numbers over the past year or so if he wants to. He's put it out in different places. You can go find it. But additionally, we this week, actually yesterday, published our 5,000th blog post since Tim founded the site back on Blogspot. And not only is it the 5,000th in a little over 5 years or so, but we published our 3,000th post only 15 months ago, and our 4,000th post came in March. So we've not only hit 15,000 posts or 5,000 posts, but we are speeding up. We've done 1,000 posts in the last 9 months, so that's pretty awesome. We do like to call ourselves the best UB coverage on the web in the world, and we are. I think we've written more about the firing and more about the hiring than anyone else. There's not a doubt in my mind that I've written more about the Olympic sports than anyone else combined. And so we do need to give a shout out to those of us engaging with us on social media. We are growing fast, and it's really a lot of fun. It gets more fun for us the more you guys talk to us about it. So that's my shout out. That does bring us to an end. Tim might want to say something here. Maybe.
Oh, no, I was just going to give you the numbers you're asking for. This year to date, we are at 601,000 page views. Last year, which was the year where you think about it, we went to a bowl. We had the Bobby Hurley. We had the New York Bull the New York Bulls initiative news. Last year was not a quiet year, but we still only did 353,000 last year. So we're up about 70% on page views this year. We're up 47% on users, up to 126,000. Sessions, we're up 85%. So yeah, it's been something of a year, and it's been a lesson for me to kind of let things go a little bit, because I've probably put a lot more of it in other people's hands and kind of let go of a lot of control this year as my life has required that. And Matt and Conrad and John McWhinney and Dave just done a spectacular job growing the site.
Speaking of John McWhinney, John McWhinney left a comment 43 minutes ago being excited about Chris Borland's defense, and I totally forgot to highlight it. So, John, if you're one of the 3 people still watching, John is excited about the 3-4 defense and a switch from the 3-3-5. Hooray for that. With that, we got our shout-outs. We scooped a story. Hooray. We're getting bigger. Hooray. And Syracuse sucks. Hooray. Those are all really exciting shout-outs. I'm Matt Grismacher. I'm joined by Tim Rorden and Conrad Moss-Stiller. We are UB Bull Run. This is our season wrap-up webcast. You may see us for basketball time. If not, you'll certainly see us next August when the football season starts up again. Have a great week.